Welcome to the Life and Leadership Podcast with me, Anurag Rai. I'm a multi-award winning executive coach, 3 times best-selling author, and an organizational psychologist. I've worked with hundreds of business leaders and my books have influenced the lives of thousands of others. My work has benefited small, medium, and large organizations in the public and private sectors. I'm the founder of Superhuman in You and Amwell Academy. I'm on a mission to positively impact 1 billion lives. And I really hope that this podcast creates a positive impact on yours. Now, before you go and start listening to the very first episode, I have 3 invitations for you. Number 1, listen for insights and not information. What is the difference? Information comes from outside, insight comes from inside. We live in a world full of information, and the problem with that is that whenever we are listening to something new, we listen either to agree or disagree. My invitation is that you do not listen to agree or disagree. Listen as if you're listening to music. Let the words flow within and around you. Some of it might make sense and some of it might not, and that's okay. Don't listen to what I say, listen to what you hear. Your own thoughts and reflections. Invitation number 2, be an explorer and not a researcher. What's the difference? A researcher tries to prove an assumption right or wrong, and so they never find anything new. Whereas an explorer just goes in with an open mind and see what they find. Invitation number 3, tap into your power of receiving. Power is not in the giving. Power is in the receiving. We don't get what is given, we get what we receive. If I give an apple to 3 people, they can all receive it differently. How much and what they receive depends on their power of receiving. One person can take that apple and put it in the fridge. It will rot after a few days. They receive nothing. Second person can make a fruit salad from it and serve it to their child. The child loves it and that gives them happiness. So they received happiness. Third person can take that apple and turn it into an apple jam and sell it. They can then use the profits to repeat the process and create a business that can generate thousands of pounds in profit. They received wealth. So my invitation for you is to tap into your own power of receiving. The insight you will get from the episodes is just a spark. A spark looks good, feels good, but does not last long. Add the fuel of action and commitment to it to turn it into a fire that can transform your life and the way you lead. Finally, I really want to thank you for your time and attention. Hello, welcome to Life and Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Anurag Rai, and this is episode 1. In this episode, I'm going to share with you a brief glimpse of my journey so far and the lessons I've learned along the way. I really hope you enjoy it. I was born in a city called Gwalior in central India. I grew up in northern India and did my college education in Kolkata, eastern part of India. I then came to the UK in 2005 with 100 pounds, few clothes, and knew no one in this country. I could not even understand or speak English properly. I came here with an ambition to open my restaurant business, but soon I realized that 100 pounds was not enough to open a restaurant business in the UK. I started looking for jobs the day I landed here. Thankfully, I managed to find a job as a crew member in McDonald's. Within 6 months, and after a lot of hard work, I was promoted to be a manager. And from there on, I worked in senior management and leadership positions in different multinational organizations in the food industry. In the following 6 years, I got 6 promotions. And there are 3 lessons I learned from this. Lesson number 1, commitment supersedes motivation. Only every single time. When I started my journey, I had 0 motivation. It is hard to feel motivated when you're struggling to pay your food and expenses. It is hard to feel motivated when your goal seems distant. So it wasn't motivation that was driving me. It was the belief and the commitment. Lesson number 2, the first step of getting to London is to decide that you're going to London. I think a lot of people waste time in figuring out what they really want. You either know or you don't know. And when you don't know, it's not about figuring out what you want. It's about choosing what you want and then believing in it and committing to it. Lesson number 3, I refuse to believe the reality that I do not want to create. I'll explain what I mean. There is a difference between my truth and universal truth. Universal truth is something you cannot argue with, like sun rises in the east. It's true for everyone. My truth, on the other hand, is something that is true for me, but it's possible that it's not true for the others. So I list down all the beliefs that are personal truth or my truth, and then I don't argue with whether they are right or wrong. I evaluate them based on whether they are an effective belief to have or not. For example, when I got to UK and met other people of my color, they would say to me that you will not get the next promotion because people favor people of the same color. I did not argue whether that was true or not. What I asked is it an effective belief to have? I read this quote in one of my all-time favorite books. Our beliefs create our reality. So I said to myself, if my beliefs are creating my reality, why would I believe in something that I do not want to create? It's important to note that the reality does not change. I change. Positive thinking does not make reality better, it makes you better. If I believe that my bosses will not favor me, then I would lose confidence even before trying. So I choose to believe that they do favor me, and the process is always fair. Result? I've never experienced that I've been at disadvantage due to my background or color. I got 6 promotions in 6 years. And I've found Scotland to be full of one of the most kind and beautiful people on the planet. There's a term in psychology for this. We call it cognitive emotive loop, which basically means that our thoughts create our feelings create our behavior, and our behavior gives us the evidence to prove the initial thought right. In the year 2011, I finally opened my restaurant. I bootstrapped it before I knew what bootstrapping meant. I did the floor, I learned to cook, I painted the walls, and I did the carpentering jobs. Once again, I learned 3 lessons from this. Lesson number 1, commitment means doing whatever it takes. It's when you don't allow yourself an option B. The problem is not that people lack motivation. Motivation is like rain shower. It's there and then it's not. You don't need motivation, you need commitment. Let me explain this. Think about someone you love the most. This could be your partner, your child, your parent, or anyone else. Now, if you hear this person crying 3 a.m. in the morning, would you rely on motivation to get up and look after them? No, right? Regardless of how tired you are or how miserable you feel, you will get up and look after them. Because in your head, there is no option B. That is commitment. What if you can bring the same level of commitment to everything you want to do? Lesson number 2. People will say different things at different times. When you start out and there is no evidence, people will laugh at you. When you become successful, people will say you are an inspiration. So understand this. What people think, do, and say is an information about them and not a definition of you or your work. It is about what they like, what they dislike, their fears, their insecurities, their opinions, and their view of the world. Now that information could be useful if it's someone who matters, like a boss, loved one, or a customer. So you can use that information to make changes to your approach. But understand that it is still an information about them. For example, last Friday my son wanted an ice cream, and I did not allow him. He thought I was a bad dad for doing so. What my son said was not a definition of me, but an information for me that he likes ice cream very much and that he's disappointed. Lesson number 3. How good you are at something is a reflection of your practice. It is not a reflection of your self-worth. Your worth is limitless because what's possible for you is limitless. When I started my business, there were many things that I was not good at. If I mistook being not good at something as being not good enough, then I would quit long before I start. I understood that to be good at something, I just need to stack up the practice and believe in myself. When you have a vision bigger than yourself, you cannot expect others to believe in you. People, family, and friends will believe in you after they see the evidence. But you got to believe in yourself first to be able to create that evidence. 6 months into the business, the restaurant was doing great, and I had about 10 staff working for me. But then a series of events happened that forced me from thinking about buying my next restaurant to having no money in my bank account and being homeless. Basically, one of my chefs came to me on one afternoon and said that his mom is not well, so he urgently needs to travel back to his country. He asked me if I could lend him some money for the flight ticket and pay hospital bills. He had been working for me for last 6 months, so I had no reason to not trust him. I gave him any personal money I had. But in the evening, CID came in the restaurant, Crime Investigation Department, and they were looking for this guy. I soon realized that this guy must have done something terribly wrong and basically used my money to escape the country. He was not coming back, and I was not getting my money back. I could not sleep that night. 2 days later, when I go to deposit last 2 days of takings into the bank, I got to know that this guy also stole my checkbook and managed to forge my signatures to take the money out of my account. The bank said that only if I came a day before, they may have been able to do something to stop the money, but now the money is gone. I felt betrayed and devastated. I had no personal money because I gave it to this guy, no money in the business account because he took it all. I did not know how am I going to pay the wages or the suppliers. I still continued to go to the restaurant but did not sleep again for the next few nights. About 3 days later, a lady from the council came to inspect the place. Now, we were a new restaurant, so we were due an inspection anyways, but it happened so that she comes in the same week. She found that the way the wiring was done in the restaurant was not as per the new safety standards. So she said, it is not safe to operate and we have to close the place down. We cannot open until the work is done. She cut down the electricity supply. Now, usually it would be okay because we would have the money to get the work done. But right now, we had no money. So I have no money on me, no money in the bank, and now no incoming because the restaurant shut. I thought to myself, it's over. I was still on visa, so I had no help from the government. And my visa was based on the restaurant, which meant if I closed the restaurant, I would have to go back. And just when I thought that things can't go worse, something else happened. Someone must have noticed that the restaurant shut. So they broke in, and because we were having issues with the bank, we were not depositing cash in the bank. So these people took any little cash we had in the tills. At this time, it felt like you are in a kickboxing match, you're knocked out, and someone comes and kicks you again. Painful. It was really painful. I felt like the universe was conspiring against me. I did not have any money on me to pay the rent for my flat. But I still had the keys to the restaurant because I wanted to hold on to it as long as I can. So I moved into the storeroom of my restaurant. It was a cold and dark place as the council cut the energy supply. I spent 4 nights in that dark storeroom with bin bag full of clothes lying all around me, asking myself this question again and again and again. Why did this happen to me? I was a big believer in karma. You do good things happen. You do bad things happen. The philosophy of whatever goes around comes around. So I must have done something terribly wrong to deserve this. The more I asked, why me? The response I got was a replay of all the memories of things that I thought I had done wrong. As a result, I felt shameful. I felt guilty. I felt like a failure. And I was depressed. If I continued that way of thinking, I would be at a totally different place today. But thankfully for me, on the fifth night, my question changed. This time, instead of asking why me, I thought, why not me? When bad things can happen to small kids in war zone countries, surely they haven't done any bad karma. Then why not me? Maybe it's not about good karma, bad karma. Maybe things just happen. It's what we do about it. This shift in perspective allowed me to go from feeling sad and depressed to being grateful in a way. That I could have been that small kid in a war zone country. Regardless of how bad my situation was, it was still better than a small kid in a war zone country. I managed to get some strength to get up and ask for help from friends and family. I managed to get together enough money to do the work and open again. For the next 18 months, I had to work hard. I got a night job as a duty manager in a hotel while running the restaurant during the day. But soon, with hard work and determination, we were back in profit. 3 lessons I learned from this. First lesson was that our answers are only as good as our questions. When I asked why me, it took me to a place of guilt, depression, and shame. When I said, it is what it is, what can I do about it? I got a response that was more constructive. Lesson number 2. We don't experience reality, we experience our thinking. I went from feeling depressed to feeling grateful just by changing my perspective and thinking. The reality did not change. I was still sitting in that dark storeroom with no money and solution to my problem. But my feelings changed. Third lesson was that life is like a game that we cannot control. Sooner we accept it, better we play. And while we cannot control the game, we can all become a better player. So it's not about what happened, but how will I respond to it? In any game, there are 2 groups. There are spectators and then there are players. What do spectators do? This person should have done that. They should have done that. This person is not playing well. What do players do? Information, information, information. What's my next move? For them, everybody's inaction or action is just a piece of information that guides their next move. Spectators blame, players respond. In the year 2014, after my son was born, I decided restaurant career is not for me. I'll never see him because when he has no school, I'll be working. Christmas, New Year, weekends and evenings are all busy times in restaurant. So I go to Google as you usually do and I ask Google, I'm starting a new family, so tell me what is the most stable career in the UK? And Google said accountant. I decided to become an accountant. Nothing would go in my head because of all the damage I'd done working those long hours. So I knew I had to work on myself first before I learned something new. So I spent next 2 years working on myself. Personal growth, NLP, psychology, neuroscience, meditation, biohacking, and work with a coach. Basically, anything I found that said it will improve my performance, I tested it. Kept what worked and let go of what didn't. But what that did for me was I managed to finish a 3-year accounting qualification in 9 months. This is when I knew I found something. Because it all felt so easy. My friends started noticing this. They would say, how are you doing this? You have a young family, you're running a full-time business, and you're finishing these exams in record times. And they would jokingly say, man, you're a superhuman. And that's when the first time the idea of superhuman in you came in my head. Because I realized that I am as ordinary as they come. So if they can see a superhuman in me, maybe there's a superhuman in all of us. So I initially got a domain, superhumaninyu.com, and I used it to post blogs. I then started working for a Big 4 accounting firm. In lockdown, when I had a bit of extra time, I wrote and published my first book, The Power Within. This went on to be a US Amazon bestseller. People started approaching me for some advice on their challenges, mainly family and friends. I shared what I could. They found it useful and got results. And more importantly, I enjoyed it. So in December 2020, I quit my job and became a full-time coach. Since then, I've qualified as a coach, master NLP practitioner, and organizational psychologist. I've written 3 books on human psychology, changing behaviors, and leadership. And I've received over 100 5-star testimonials from business leaders who have worked with me one-on-one or have attended one of my workshops. This brings us to the end of this episode. My life and business are driven by just one mission, and that is to positively impact 1 billion lives. So I really hope this episode was able to create some positive impact in your life. Thank you for listening. I appreciate the time and attention you have given to me. Finally, just before you go, I want a favor from you. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with more people. I wish you all the love, happiness, and success.